Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed without getting totally lost in the daily flood of information. Today, we're slicing through all that noise. We're pulling out the most impactful, surprising, and honestly just plain interesting posts from X that are really driving conversations right now.
Think of it as your daily shot of insight, yeah, delivered with just enough energy to keep you listening.
That's exactly the mission. We've sifted through a whole stack of sources, these 9 pretty significant posts from X today. They cover everything from cutting edge tech and global stuff to market trends and some, well, unexpected cultural moments. Our goal is basically to walk you through them, pull out the key takeaways, and help you get not just what's up, but why it actually matters. No fluff, just, sharp analysis.
All right, then let's jump right into the feed. First up, keeping an eye on the money world, we've got a post from @Sailor. He declares pretty boldly, Bitcoin is on sale.
Right, and at Saylor's, Michael Saylor, of course, he's famous for his super aggressive Bitcoin strategy over at MicroStrategy. So when he posts something like this, it's way more than just him thinking out loud. He's basically showing off MicroStrategy's huge Bitcoin portfolio. Was it $72.15 billion, which has seen this insane 862% return since 2020. And this whole on sale thing, it comes right after Bitcoin dipped, from around $124.05K down to $113K. For him, these dips aren't scary. They're, well, buying opportunity. He's backing it up too. MicroStrategy bought over 500,000 Bitcoins. Forbes reported on that.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty gutsy move. It almost sounds like he wants everyone else to jump in too. But what's the strategic angle for MicroStrategy itself, especially for folks who are maybe a bit hesitant about buying crypto directly?
Well, yeah, it's not just about buying the dip. What Saylor's done is actually pretty smart. You see, MicroStrategy stock, it kind of acts as this indirect way to get exposure to Bitcoin. This pulls in institutional investors, maybe even individuals, who can't trade spot Bitcoin directly, because of regulations or their own rules. So he's basically carved out this really interesting financial model. It definitely challenges the old ways of investing and opens up a new door into crypto. Almost like a proxy Bitcoin ETF for some people.
A proxy ETF, huh?
Yeah.
That's a really clever way to frame it. Turning a company's stock into a digital asset stand-in. Okay, so from finance, let's pivot a bit. A different kind of challenge, this one sparking debate not in boardrooms, but on the campaign trail. We've got @Robert and Sterling weighing in on, honestly, a pretty unexpected topic. Physical fitness in politics, he writes. Zoran not benching 135 isn't a huge deal. I actually served with a few Marines who couldn't do that, and we never gave them a hard time. We didn't want them worrying during pregnancy, and we knew they'd get strong again after coming back from maternity leave.
Yeah, this one definitely caught my eye. I was talking about Zoran Mamdani, the New York City mayoral candidate. There was that video, right? Went viral. Him struggling with a 135-pound bench press. And he just, boom, kicked off this whole debate. It's kind of wild how fast the public latches onto something like a gym moment. But what's really interesting here, I think, is how it taps into this bigger, maybe slightly weird cultural thing where, politicians' fitness gets put under the microscope, even though there's no real proof it connects to how well they govern.
Right. And Sterling's comment about the Marines, that's a pretty direct pushback on that whole scrutiny thing, almost mocking the expectation, isn't it?
Exactly. His anecdote about the Marines and how their fitness standards vary, they have exemptions for pregnancy or injury. It adds this layer of nuance that was missing. It sort of gently pushes back on that immediate, personal failure reaction. Suggests maybe Mamdani's struggle is temporary or there's context, challenges the whole politicians must be athletes idea. And this isn't just chatter. There are actual stakes. A 2021 study, I think it was in the Journal of Applied Psychology, found voter perceptions of a candidate's physical strength can actually swing outcomes by up to 15%. It's subconscious maybe, but it has real political weight.
15%? Whoa, okay, that's actually pretty significant. So this perceived strength, or maybe lack of it, could genuinely move the needle on votes. All right, shifting gears again, up to the stars this time. SpaceX announced a big milestone today. The Post reads, less than 1 hour until tonight's launch of Dragon's 33rd commercial resupply services mission to the space station. All systems are looking good, and teams are keeping an eye on the weather.
And good news, it was a success. The Dragon's 33rd mission, CRS-33 they call it, lifted off right on schedule, 2:45 a.m. Eastern, August 24th.
Yeah.
From Cape Canaveral, carrying essential supplies up to the ISS. And the really amazing part, NASA data backs this up. SpaceX now has a perfect 100% success rate. That's 33 successful missions in a row. Incredible.
That is incredible, a perfect record. But beyond just the launch, there was something else, wasn't there? Something pointing to how much more sophisticated space logistics are getting.
Absolutely. So this launch happened in a pretty narrow window of good weather. They had a 75% go forecast, which, okay, sounds a bit iffy, but it kind of pushes back on the idea that weather delays SpaceX all the time. Historically, only about 20% of their launches get significantly set back by weather. But the really cool part, the sort of game changer, is what happened next. The Dragon spacecraft docked with the ISS completely autonomously. Today, August 25th, about 7:30 a.m. British Summer Time. This just showcases really advanced AI navigation. Studies show they've got like a 98% success rate on these autonomous dockings now. That's a massive leap forward for space logistics. Makes these supply runs not just successful, but way smoother, more reliable.
98% autonomous docking.
Oh.
It's almost becoming routine, which really says something about the tech. Okay, speaking of things moving fast, Elon Musk, he's been busy online again, this time with a very direct message. The post from @ElonMusk is just a link to an image.
Right. And the image, if you've seen it, it's this sort of stylized monkey wearing sunglasses, and it just says, try Grok, really big. Classic Musk promotion. Right? Short, punchy. It's obviously for xAI's chatbot, Grok. What's interesting here is how fast Grok has been evolving. It launched, November 2023? Then Grok 3 came out in February 2025, supposedly trained with like 10 times the computing power. It all fits with xAI's big mission, advancing science, understanding the universe, all that.
A monkey in sunglasses pushing an AI for scientific discovery. There's definitely something there, isn't there? But what does this tell us about the bigger picture of AI development, beyond just, a fun image?
Well, it kind of highlights this interesting tension, I think. On one hand, companies like xAI, they're pushing boundaries, trying to build these really powerful tools for science. But then this kind of promotion, maybe unintentionally, reminds us how much human influence is still baked in. There have been reports, for instance, instances where Grok seemed to reflect Elon Musk's own views in its answers. So yeah, while we're aiming for this powerful, objective AI, it makes you wonder, how truly unbiased can any AI be when its creators, their viewpoints, are part of the training data, the whole process? It's this complex dance between AI autonomy and the human touch.
That's a really important thought, something to keep in mind whenever you're interacting with AI. Okay, let's bring it back down to earth now. Specifically, a public safety issue brewing in Washington, D.C. @Jack Posobiec shared a very short but kind of worrying post. All over D.C.
Yeah, this refers to something that happened on August 23rd. Apparently, over 50 dirt bikes and ATVs were, riding illegally, causing issues on the H Street corridor in D.C. Now, H Street, it's historically been a really vibrant place, but lately it's been struggling. Crime issues, economic recovery problems. And what makes this particularly striking is the timing. President Trump had just ordered this increased federal law enforcement presence in D.C. Remember that? A 7-day crackdown started August 8th, and then that controversial federal takeover of the D.C. Police Department on August 11th.
Right. Okay. So with all that federal muscle supposedly flexing, you'd expect a pretty swift response to something like this. What actually happened based on Posobiec's post?
Well, that's the core of it, really. Despite all those new federal measures, apparently no arrests were made during this whole incident with the riders. So it's not just about, kids on dirt bikes. It becomes a stark example of how sometimes top-down federal intervention, even with more boots on the ground, can clash with what's happening locally. It sort of highlights this disconnect, right? Creates a kind of public safety gap. And it fuels these really intense debates about whether federal intervention works better than local policing, especially when data actually shows arrests for these kinds of incidents have gone down since 2019. Just shows that more presence does not automatically mean more control or, results on the street.
Yeah, that's a really powerful point about governance and, reality versus policy. Okay, from public safety, let's shift to geopolitics and maybe a bit of political theater. @CharlieKirk11 shares a clip, a pretty pointed one, involving a key political figure. He writes, "Watch as J.D. Vance is forced to explain diplomacy to Kristen Welker like he's talking to a fifth grader. The president has applied more economic pressure to the Russians than Biden did in 3 years. This is how negotiation works."
This clip, it's from NBC's Meet the Press. You see U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance basically laying out President Trump's approach to Russia, diplomacy, economic pressure, the whole thing. And he's drawing this really sharp contrast with the Biden administration's strategy. Vance is arguing pretty directly that Trump's method was, more effective. The specific strategy he mentions, Trump putting secondary tariffs on countries buying Russian oil and gas, basically hitting Russia indirectly by hurting their customers. The goal was clearly to mess with global energy markets and crank up the pressure. It definitely highlights this pattern of using economic weapons as a primary foreign policy tool.
Okay, Vance makes his case there for using economic pressure strategically. But thinking bigger picture, diplomatically, does that kind of leverage always get you what you want in the long run? Or could it maybe, I don't know, tick off allies or cause other problems down the line?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Economic pressure, yeah, it can be powerful, but it's definitely a double-edged sword. I mean, under Biden, the relationship with Russia was famously described as like one of the coldest ever. The focus was much more on direct confrontation, traditional sanctions, framing Russia as a threat. Vance is challenging that, suggesting Trump's economic maneuvering was a smarter negotiation play. But, history also shows that going it alone with economic measures like that can strain alliances. It doesn't always achieve the main goal, and sometimes it backfires, right? Pushes countries to find other partners or realign politically. It really forces you to reconsider what counts as effective diplomacy in today's really complex world.
Yeah, definitely a lot to chew on there. Okay, let's shift gears completely now. Time for a fun, nostalgic trip down internet memory lane. At America Made hits us with some serious early internet nostalgia, asking the simple yet profound question, where is he now?
Well, I know this one. The Numa Numa guy.
Yeah.
Gary Brolsma, right? That video, the Numa Numa dance from the early 2000s, it was absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Man, a massive cultural moment. It had something like 700 million views by 2006, which was just mind-blowing back then. It's a real internet artifact.
Totally. It just instantly brings back that whole vibe of the early internet. But, beyond just the nostalgia trip, it actually says something interesting about how stuff goes viral now versus then, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That whole era of the internet, people often call it a kind of golden age, right? Because the content felt so unfiltered, so raw. It was mostly driven by just humor, community, people connecting over something funny, not really about making money or building a brand, which is such a stark contrast to today's internet.
Yeah.
Everything's curated by algorithms, driven by commerce. Everyone's chasing followers and sponsorships. This post is just a great little reminder of how things used to take off organically just because people enjoyed it and shared it. Really shows you how different the digital world is now.
Man, what a difference a couple of decades make. Definitely makes you think about how we create and consume stuff online these days. All right, speaking of powerful images, let's swing back to politics with a pretty striking photo. @LibSoftTikTok shares it, calling it another photo for the history books, Oh Schwinn.
Right, that picture. It made the rounds pretty fast. It shows Donald Trump in the Oval Office, and he's wearing this hat that says, I was right about everything. And he's pointing at J.D. Vance, who's laughing. It looks very staged, clearly meant to project this image of political victory and unity. It's possibly linked, some people think, to that pretty tense meeting back in February 2025 between Trump and Zelensky, where Trump supposedly took a really dominant approach.
Yeah, it's a very strong visual, especially when you think about Vance's own political path, right?
It's exactly. Vance's journey is, well, it's quite something. He was a major Trump critic back in 2016. I think he even called him reprehensible publicly. And now he's a key ally, picked as the vice presidential candidate in July 2024. So this photo, it's really aimed at cementing Trump's narrative for his base, projecting success, vindication, we won, we were right, a strong, united front. And while, okay, there aren't academic studies on this specific photo, political psychology tells us these kinds of symbolic gestures, they're super effective. They boost a leader's charisma, build loyalty among followers. It's a very deliberate imagery, doing some very specific political work.
Yeah, the optics are definitely working overtime there. Okay, our final buzzworthy post for today, another one involving J.D. Vance, this time coming from @DonaldJ.Trump Jr. He states pretty bluntly, J.D. once again just absolutely demolishes the fake news.
And this post, for context, it's referencing a meme that was going around from @FreedomEaser, I think. It shows J.D. Vance, and the caption is, I chimed in with haven't you people ever heard of releasing the Epstein list? And then it has the text, panicking at the disco?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty clever play on the Panic. At the Disco song title, obviously, bringing a bit of meme humor to a really serious topic.
Okay, so Don Jr.'s post is framing Vance as winning against the media. But the meme itself, it's not just a random jab at fake news, is it? It points to something very specific.
Exactly. The meme itself taps right into this ongoing, very loud public conversation about the Epstein files. The Trump administration, they've been under a lot of pressure to release more of those files. Remember, the White House was even handing out those Epstein files. Phase 1 binders. These are like collections of declassified documents about the case given to influencers and online personalities. So Don Jr.'s post, using that meme, it really underscores the continued public fascination and, honestly, the political tension around getting more transparency on these files. It shows how a meme can get folded into this bigger, serious political narrative that really connects with a certain part of the public. It's about perception and that demand for information. And that, folks, wraps up our deep dive for today, August 25th, 2025. Woo! From Bitcoin sales and autonomous spaceships to political bench presses, internet ghosts, and public safety debates. The X feed? Yeah, it never stops. We hope we've pulled out some genuinely interesting threads for you to think about, maybe give you some context you wouldn't find just scrolling.
Yeah, our goal was definitely to give you some solid nuggets of knowledge today. It's still kind of amazing how fast conversations can shift online, right? And the weirdest things can suddenly become major topics. It's a constant challenge to actually stay informed.
It really is. And it brings up that big question, doesn't it? In this super fast, often messy information age, how do you even pick out what's truly important from all the noise? And maybe what's our responsibility as people taking in all this info to actually think critically about what we're seeing and hearing?
Definitely something to chew on as you navigate your own feeds today. Until next time, stay curious, everyone, stay informed, and we will catch you on the next Deep Dive.